So the next topic on our list is going to be just the non-Windows platforms that we're supporting. And then at the end of it, we'll just go through and get a few just additional things in SP1, but we hit the cool things outside of the new platforms. So next thing we'll talk about is Linux and Unix clients. The cool thing about this is that the infrastructure is exactly the same. So you have your primary side, your SQL server. The Linux client uses a standard management point. So no changes for management point, and it's going to use distribution point. So your infrastructure is exactly the same for managing a Linux and Unix client configuration manager as it is for Windows clients. Nothing really changes at all. So here's my devices. I don't have a Linux client in here at all. When we get it installed here momentarily, it's going to say Linux client is the computer name. We only support Linux and Unix servers. We don't support desktops. So it's a server-based support, which is kind of weird when you know the configuration managers in the client space. So we're not in the server space and system center, although we manage servers. But so we primarily focus on Windows clients, but we focus on Linux and Unix servers. Anyway, so I've got a distribution point and management point, the exact same images I was using for just our last demos that we were just doing. So a couple things you have to be prepared for in your environment. One is your Linux clients can use your same DP infrastructure. And for the most part, we make Linux clients act like a Windows client. So they have to do content lookup, which means they have to be in a boundary group that has access to your DP. So you'd want to go to boundaries and make sure you have a boundary set up for your Linux clients. Now in my case, I have this IP address range of 192.168.3.1 to 3.254, which encompasses the entire IP subnet. But just for the grins, let's just say my Linux clients are in a different subnet. I would just go ahead and create a boundary, Linux clients, and I'll just do an IP address range, 192.168.3.40 is my client address, 192.168.3.40, yep. The 192.168.3.40. I just create a range of one address, but obviously you put in whatever range is appropriate for you guys, or subnet if they're on different subnets, whatever. So create a boundary that's going to include your Linux clients, and then make sure it's got access to your DP. So I'll right-click, add selected items to an existing boundary group, and I only have one boundary group. This boundary group, local clients and MCM, does have, I'll just show you quickly, does have access to this distribution point. So that distribution point is accessed here by this client in this boundary group. It's got the 80 site, which is my Windows clients, and then this IP address range for my Linux clients. So you can see that even though I had an IP subnet that would encompass them, they're not 80 joins, so they wouldn't have been in this 80 site, which is my boundary. So, got that. So that's the first thing you need, is make sure your clients have access to your DPs, just like a Windows client would need. Second thing is, Linux and Unix clients traditionally would not be domain joined. So in order for them to access a DP, besides being able to physically get to it, they have to authenticate. And because they're not domain joined, the computer account is not valid, user account is not valid, so we have to use the network access account. So you're going to have to create a network access account in your environment. New user, and I'll just call it network access account, shortcut of NAA. I'll give it my super secret password. You know what's a great password to use? Is type in blank. Somebody asks you to say it's blank. They don't believe you. Or secret. Secret's another good one. Ask what your password is, you say secret, and they give up on it. And obviously you can't say, have to change password as next logon, and in my environment I'll say password can't change, doesn't expire, etc. That's it, just create a domain user account as your network access account. No other requirements are needed. Now configuration manager has to know that that's your network access account. So administration workspace, sites, go to configure site components, software distribution, and then click this network access account tab. And you can see the default is to use the computer account. Again, not valid for Linux clients. So I'm going to use the second option of specify, set, user account, and I'll browse to NAA. It finds it. Type in my blank password. I'll verify that it's correct, so you can evaluate the network share, primary one, lab files, and the account can access the network resource. So we're good.
And this is a global setting, so that you're changing it for all the clients that are accessing, or is it
yes.
local? Okay.
It's for all clients, because you have one setting per site.
So in other words, if you want to support Linux and Unix server clients, you're going to change your whole environment and how it accesses.
No, you're still, your Windows clients will go ahead and they'll default to using computer account.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, they'll still default to that. This just allows us to specify, here's the account we want to use for that fallback. So no, and so we use the computer account, then user account, then fall back to the network access account. Okay, so that's it as far as the prep stuff goes. Now, we don't include the Linux, Unix, or Mac clients with Service Pack 1. So they don't come with it. You have to go download them from the website. A couple different ways you can do so. One is if you actually go back to hierarchy settings and go back to this automatic client approval, you have this option down here at the very bottom. This applies to Windows operating system only. You can go here to download additional clients. So click that Microsoft Download Center. They'll take you to the location to download the Mac client, which is one, and then the appropriate Linux and Unix clients, which we have something like 20 different client flavors we support. You can do that, or on your splash screen, when you start the installer process, so right here, I think it's the bottom option. Yeah, downloaded clients for additional operating systems. You go click it from there. That will again take you to the download center there. Or you can just go search on the download center and find them. So numerous different ways. They just don't come with the product when you download the product. Okay, so my infrastructure is all prepared. What I've done is I've got a SUSE 11 64-bit image here. And I'm going to go ahead and log in as root with my blank password. I've already downloaded the config manager agent, and I copied it into my image, so I don't have to do that over the network. So if we do unfortunately, the Zoom it doesn't work on a Linux client, so so here you can see I did a change directory to the location where I downloaded the client agent to. I did an ls, basically a directory. Shows you the installer, the agent, and the install command. So I'm just going to go ahead and install the client agent. So say /install. Your first parameter is -mp. You have to tell which management point you want to work with, and it's primary1.config manager dom.local, so the FQDN. Then -site code. You have to tell it what site you want it to sign to. It's hard coding. And then, then your installer. So the tar file for installing the client agent. So a /install space -mp space FQDN of your management point space -site code space site code space and then your tar file. And I'll go and kick off the installation of the product. It's done. So now if you wanted to see, here's the install command up here. And the install's done. So if we switch over to my site server image, if I go back to Assets of Compliance and Devices, now I see Linux client. So it's already done a registration into my site. If I go look at the properties of this DDR, basically, we'll see that the discovery method is client registration, just like you would have from a Windows client. So it registers in the site. You can track that in the DDM log file as well if you want to. You can see it says agent edition is Unix and Linux, as opposed to Windows. Computer is the type as opposed to mobile device, and then the client agent version. And even though it's the shipping SP1 version, their version number is not the same as our version number. Our version number is 7804, and theirs is 7800. And I argued with them all through the beta program. Come on, guys, coordinate with us so we can tell. And they're off by 4. So they're a lot closer than they used to be, but still they're not there. So anyway, so we have that. But if you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see that this client is not approved. And in ConfigMan 2012, no client can get any policies until it's approved in your environment. In 2007, you only had to be approved to get what we called secret policies, which was the network access account with the secret policy. But in 2012, every single client has to be approved. So there's two different ways you can handle this. One way is you can go back to your site configuration, the hierarchy settings, the client approval and conflicting records tab. You can go there and you can change how you want to approve clients, and you can go ahead and select this bottom option to automatically approve everybody, which we don't normally recommend, but you may want to if you have a large population of Linux clients that you want to go ahead and get approved. In fact, if you played around with the beta version of Linux Unix support with our beta, you had to do that. It wouldn't work with manual client approval. And I questioned them as to why, what makes the difference. All it is a change in the table, in our table saying this client is 1 for approved versus 0, but for whatever reason it would not work unless you set this. Manual approval wouldn't work. It obviously does work now. I'm going to go here and I'm going to do manual approval. So I'll go to the client, and you see now it's an active client. I'm going to go ahead and do a approve action. It says, are you sure you want to manually approve this one client? I'll say yes. And now the properties say that it is approved. So now it can go ahead and retrieve all policies and so on. So right now it just has client registration as an agent. So now I'm going to go tell it to retrieve policies on the Linux client. So I'm going to go ahead and do a /opt Microsoft config manager bin CCM exec. So we install CCM exec as a service, a daemon on the Linux client, rs, and then policy. That forces to retrieve policies very much like the machine policy retrieval and evaluation cycle, initiate now. And we'll do a tail -f bar Microsoft fcxcm.log, and the tail command is kind of like the trace32 utility where you just see the result of a log file. So it's down there retrieving policies. One of these policies, just like on a Windows client when it gets registered and approved, is it downloads policy, so it's do heartbeat discovery. So it's doing a heartbeat discovery record, and we should be able to go to our site server. It's probably done by now. Go to logs, and there's DDM log 1250. Yep, they're probably just sending the heartbeat DDR. And here's the registration request. Here's the registration request right there. And processing DDR. Here's processing DDR. So that should be our DDR from our client computer. So now if we go back to the Linux client, or back to the Apple client database, and look at properties, now we see this set in the heartbeat discovery record. Again, just like a Windows client would. So it registers the same way. It goes ahead and does heartbeat discovery. They tried to architect this act as much like a Windows client as it could be. So that you guys as admins, you don't have to learn a whole lot new, other than how to install the client agent. There's no push process for this. It's a manual install process for your systems. Okay, so it's done that. Now, let's go ahead and force it to do hardware inventory. It'll do that automatically, but we can go ahead and force it to do that instead of waiting. So we'll go back and run that same command, just change policy to HM for hardware inventory. And tell it to look at the log file. And it's going to go ahead and generate hardware inventory. So it's going to have a whole bunch of commands flowing across for, just like in a Windows client, if you look at the inventory agent log file, you're going to see class not supported, instance not found type stuff. It's going to request things that aren't available in that, in this case, virtual environment or the physical environment. So you get a bunch of those things going on. And you don't have to look at the log files, obviously. You can just wait for things to happen on its own. Just kicking things off, and when it stops here, it's not done yet. We'll know that inventory's there. We could also go here to our site server again and go to the logs, and it will be this log file right here. So data loader says it last updated at 1244, so when it updates to 1254, or whatever time it is, then we'll know that the Linux client's done with this inventory. And it's not quite done yet.
Is it possible to generate a report on all non-approved clients?
Is it possible to do that? Yes. Absolutely, because it's in the database. You go to query the database, say, client approval equals 0.
Okay.
Yep. So inventory is done. If I could zoom in, I would show you that right here it says inventory collection has completed. That's all, inventory is done. So my data loader log on the site server end of things is done. So I go back over to the site server, data loader log should be updated. 1253, so it's got inventory data. So I go over here, do a start, resource explorer, just like you look at inventory from a Windows client. And here's your hardware inventory. You don't get back nearly as much inventory data as you get from a Windows client, but you do get back some inventory, including installed applications, basically add, remove programs, inventory for a Linux client. So if we look at that, go to installed applications, sort by name. What I'm going to do for software distribution, I'm going to go ahead and distribute the Operations Manager Client Agent for Linux. And its name is SCX. So it would fit in right between screen and SDL. If my elementary school education is working for me. So it should fit right in there between those two guys. This SCX-10461 or something like that. So it's not installed there. But now you can go and create reports or run reports. I go run a normal inventory report. For example, operating system. So count operating systems and service packs. I go ahead and run that report. It will give back all the data for all of the clients that I have in my database, which is going to include SUSE 11 x64. So it's just more data in our database. It just came from a non-Windows environment. So that's all perfectly fine. And while he's doing that, rendering his report, I'm going to go create a collection for software distribution. I'm going to go create a device collection. So it appears here just as a client in the normal collections, but I want to go ahead and create a collection just of the Linux clients. So Linux client, I'll make it limited to all systems. And we'll make this a query-based collection. Linux. And we'll modify our query to state. Oops. And we'll do system resource. And it's operating system name and version. Any different attributes you want to, but I just use operating system name and version. And there you can see that the inventory has been reported in with the operating system. So I'll take SUSE 11 x64 and finish off that collection. And so we've got our collection here. This will, again, automatically collection membership update here momentarily. So in just a second, I'll refresh and it'll be done already. Go back to our report. And here's our report. You can see I got the Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows Server 2008 R2 Enterprise, and then SUSE Linux Enterprise Edition 11 and 64-bit. And it's a hyperlink, so if I go ahead and drill in on it, a linked report, it'll go ahead and show that the computer name is Linux client. So just like a normal Windows client would be. Now if I go here and hit refresh, I got my one Linux client, do show members, and there he is, Linux client. So now I've got him isolated in a collection for targeting software distribution. So we can go ahead and distribute software. Go to software library, go to packages. We don't do application delivery to Linux clients. It's packages, so classic software distribution, packages and programs. So we'll create package, operations manager. Boy, I can't type it all. I blame it on the keyboard, but it's my laptop. Operations manager, client, agent for Linux. And this package does contain source files. And we'll go here to primary one, lab files, Linux package. And we create a standard program. install ops manager agent. I'll browse to this file I want to install. It's not an executable. It's a RPM file. And the install command, and I know basically nothing about Linux, so I'm only going with what the RPM told me, which is RPM -UVH and then the file. Don't tell me what that, don't ask me what it means. It just means install this, the guy with these commands around basically. But yeah, you guys know this a whole lot better than I do. Now, just like for Windows, this is required software distribution. So it can run during maintenance windows, which might be when there's nobody logged on, which traditionally in the server there may not be somebody logged on. So say run whether or not a user is logged on. So we'll do that. And then platforms. So here you see Windows RT, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows servers, Vistas, XPs. Oops, like that. I'm trying to scroll one down further. Keep going on down, and now all of a sudden you get down to the SUSE 11s, or SUSEs, and Solaris, and Red Hats, HP UX, and AIX. So all the different versions of the operating system you support. Pick the appropriate ones for your application or package and program. And you finish off your package and program creation. I got my program now. I want to go ahead and deploy it. So I go ahead and click deploy. I'll deploy to my collection of Linux clients. Put the content on a distribution point. These are the same DPs that we use. Linux clients do not access cloud-based DPs, however, so they can't access those. It's only on-premise. So there'd be no sense in you wasting the disk space to put this content up on a cloud-based DP. I'm sure from Microsoft end of things, we're probably okay with you doing that. You get more money that way, but economically, you probably don't want to. And required software distribution. There's no end user portal. There's no available or optional software distribution to Linux, Unix, or Macintosh when we get there right now. I didn't talk about this, but this is a new feature in SP1. The allow clients on a metered internet connection to download the content after the installation deadline, which might incur additional costs. This is not applicable for Linux, Unix. It's only applicable for Windows 8. Windows 8 clients have the ability now of managing internet-based connections through 3G and 4G wireless cards. And as you know, those are like your smartphones. You have X amount of gigabytes that you can download on a monthly basis. If you exceed that, then you get a fairly hefty phone bill. So we allow you to control if Configuration Manager can use that download over those type of connections or not. Because we don't want to be the ones to give you bill shock at the end of the month because your bill's $400 instead of $100 that you expected because you were downloading a whole bunch of stuff. Now, if an end user so chooses to do whatever, they go hog wild, that's their own choice because they knew what was going on. But we don't want to be the ones doing our automated stuff to cause those charges for you. So you get control whether or not we're doing stuff. Okay, required software distribution, so I'll say install as soon as possible. And then if you hadn't seen our Windows Embedded support, here's a Windows Embedded to commit changes to the Windows Embedded device. In other words, disable the write filter, write the change onto the hard drive, then re-enable the write filter so end users can't go and store stuff on your image. But again, it's not Windows Embedded, so it's immaterial. And then download from DP, from a fast network, your appropriate settings for slow networks. So this is, remember I talked about if you, that one tap customer that didn't have any boundary groups for 2012, they always had to go in here and say, download for the slow network boundaries. If you're not, if a client's not in a boundary group, it's considered a slow boundary, a slow client. But for me, it's immaterial because it is I put them in that boundary group, so we're good. And then this other checkbox right below that, allow clients to share content with other clients in the same subnet, that's branch cache. So if you're a branch cache enabled client, you can download the content from a branch cache enabled DP, one client can download it and then share it with other clients in the same subnet. Now, Linux, Unix, they don't have branch cache, so it's not appropriate for them, but that's what that setting is for. And so now we went ahead and created this deployment, that's a policy. So I want to go ahead and make sure I don't retrieve policies too soon. So it's 1 o'clock, which is 103 now. It's not updated. So you need this guy to be updated to say 103 or 104, depending on what the policy is. And then the size says 1315, and it's probably going to change a number of times. Why is my policy not, oh, there it goes, 103, and it has updated, so I'm probably good to go ahead and retrieve the policy on the client, but I know it does modify a number of different times, the size just keeps going up right now, so I'm going to wait until it's kind of stopping its thrashing on policy provider to make sure it's got all the stuff it needs to do creating for the policy. Again, normally you don't have to wait for this because you're telling it to deploy after hours. And so the next time the client will retrieve policies, which is by default on an hourly basis, they would go ahead and say, okay, I got a policy, ooh, as soon as possible, that means right now, and we'll go ahead and install. Okay, we look at the deal, we just bumped up again. I don't know what else is going on there, but we should well be done with our policy that we need to for the Linux client. Now I go back to my Linux client, I install the retrieve policies again, and look at the log file, and we should have quite a bit of activity going on here in the log file. So it's downloading policy, and it's going to go do the evaluation. It's got to go ahead and download the content from the distribution point, store it in the local client cache, just like in a Windows environment, and then go ahead and install the software. And here's a whole bunch of stuff that happened. You'll see references in here, if it stops. And here's my package ID. You'll see my advertisement ID, program ID, package ID, and so on. So you see references of things that will make sense to you. We should see down here towards the end somewhere, it will say that the content is not required to persistent cache, it's deleting cache. So we should see that somewhere in there as well. Again, this will all happen automatically on the client when things are all done. And again, normally not sitting here watching and waiting for things to happen. It's just going on its own little schedule. We implement CDM executive service on the client, just like we do on a Windows client. There's not native WMI on a Linux client, so we put a WMI layer there. So we install something called a SIM server, which is WMI. So we install that for you, so we basically have WMI. You can customize the hardware inventory. OMI group has the technology and command and code that you need to go ahead and customize hardware inventory, so you can do that if you wish to. So there's a lot of different capabilities you have there, but it's installed the client agent, it's hardware inventory, which includes installed software, packaged program software delivery, which can include patches. You can put your patches in a packaging program, and that's what you get for client support. And it just looks, again, like our Windows client as far as infrastructure and learning and so on. So this guy should be all done. Processing of policies, not supported. Trying to see if I see the, I don't see the cache stuff near preceding cache, but if it worked, then we should have be able to do a dir /opt Microsoft SCX. And there you see the SCX folder is the one. SCX is System Center Cross-Plat. X is for cross-platform. And that's what they just used X, and initially the only thing we had was Operations Manager. They used SCX for everything. And so we went and installed some files there. We could do a, what is it, RPM-QA type grep SCX. There you can see the utility that we installed, SCX-1.4.0-640. We could do a, what is it, a ES-EL grep SCX. There you can see the SCXC SIM server. That's like our WMI layer that we get installed on there. That should tell you that the stuff is installed. Now if we go look at our site server end of things, go back to the monitoring workspace, go down to deployments. Here's our Operations Manager client agent, no status. Go run summarization. And if the client has reported in its status messages, then when we summarize, we should get a 100% compliance for this application.
Hey, well, would you mind resharing out your link session? It's frozen.
Would I mind resharing out my link session? Okay. Oops. Stop presenting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, stop presenting. And then here, and go here, and okay.
On the one off to the,
There we go. And just stop there as well. going.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, very good. And, oh, I go to our site server and do a refresh here. And, okay, I don't have status back yet. Let me go ahead and do summarization again. It's not instantaneous for status messages, so it may take him a moment before we get to that. Okay, so we'll let him process for a moment. So the other way we can verify that our, let me unpin that, is by going to our Linux client. Let's go ahead and force that hardware inventory again. Hardware inventory. Get hardware inventory, and this time we should see SVX-1.4.0-640 or whatever it was as an installed application now on our from this client when he reports his hardware inventory back in. So we can validate that when we see the data loader log file from 1253 to something like 109, just hit 110, so when this guy updates to 110, 111, we'll know that. We can go see if we got any updated status message from the software delivery yet. And there we go. We got our package status. So it does say that the client was successful in the distribution, or in the installation. We go view status, we'll see success. So that deployment ID was Linux client as a computer. So we see that, and our hardware inventory has not been processed yet. Oh, there, just did. Just got done processing. So now we can go back into our admin console, go back to the Assets and Clients workspace, go back to our Linux client, start, Resource Explorer, install apps. And there you see SVX. 1.4.0.640. So that's the extent of our solution right now for our first release being Service Pack 1. Installation of a client agent that, again, makes it look like a Windows-based client. Hardware inventory, which includes your installed applications, and software distribution. The most common things people request are settings management, the ability of doing compliance drift and remediating non-compliance through settings management, DCM basically, and operating system deployment, people ask for. And then I've heard some requests for end-user-based software distribution. But given that really it's a server-targeted platform, you don't normally have end users sitting on a server platform to install software, so it's not as big of an issue there. So. But again, there's like 18, 20 different flavors of this software of operating systems we support, and we've stated that we'll add new support for new operating systems as the manufacturer releases them within 180 days. So it's not as quick as a Windows client because all of our Windows clients use the same installers, client.msi and CCM exec. Here we have to have unique installed and tar files for each of the different operating systems. We have to create unique client agents. Okay, so anything else you want to see in this image? Because I have to kill this image and start up a different image for Macintosh. Because different site requirements. And I don't have the brain capacity to learn everything at one time. So I learn something, I snapshot it, so I can always go back to it. And then I build a new snapshot for something new so I can keep things separated in my mind. So I do have to change images here. So too late now. Well, I got a snapshot of it, so we can always get back to it. So let's go ahead and...
Paulie, someone on Link was asking why client OSs are supported for Unix and Linux.
That is a great question. I don't know the answer because of the fact that we are client-based, so it makes sense. So I don't know why they chose to only support server platforms. And it's a cross-platform team. My guess is because in the cross-platform team, they were initially, all their work was through Operations Manager, which is server-based as well. So server-based platform. So that would be my guess. I've never asked the PM directly, hey, why is it you're only doing you're only doing server-based OSs, but that would be my guess just because of the fact that they come from that operations manager integration, which is server-based.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thanks for relaying the question. Next time, ask something I know an answer to. Sorry. That's all right. You don't know what I don't know until you ask. But just assume I don't know it, so don't bother asking any questions. Okay. Now, for Macintosh, in a Macintosh environment, you do have some different infrastructure requirements. So all this is booting up my image. So your MP has to change. Your MP has to support HTTPS as a protocol. Your MP has to support internet-based clients, internet clients, and mobile devices. So on your MP, you have to go ahead and state it's going to support SSL protocol, which means certificate. It has to be able to support internet-based clients, because in essence, we treat Macintoshes like internet-based mobile clients, and then the mobile platform. So it's something that not everybody's real thrilled about, but that's the way it is, again, in our first release of this support.
Does that mean your Windows clients all times use HTTPS?
Nope. That does not mean that at all. It can mean that if that's what you want it to mean, but it didn't have to, no. Because in ConfigMan 2012, we allow you to have multiple management points per site. So you could have one internet-facing MP with SSL, and everybody else can have HTTP with no certificates at all. So it's much easier than in 2007, where that meant you had to have your entire infrastructure running native mode, which meant PKI search for everybody, which is not necessarily what you want to have. It's okay in an AD environment. It's fairly easy to get certs out, but in a worker-based environment, it's not as easy to manage those certs. So yeah, we tried to make that a whole lot easier for you. So your infrastructure, back here to our site, to our management points. You see I had to go and configure my management point for HTTPS, allow at least internet, doesn't matter if you allow both, but at least internet connections, but I got mine set to allow both, and then allow mobile devices and Macintoshes to use this computer, this management point. So basically you're turning your management point into what we used to call a DMP, a device management point, a management point for devices. So you have to do that. But again, you have a separate one for mobile devices and Macintoshes, and a separate one for your Windows-based environments. So I didn't mention this, but but the Linux and Unix clients can talk over HTTP or HTTPS. So you can use the same infrastructure if you wanted to for Macs as well as Linux, Unix, and all your Windows clients. Your distribution point is very much like the management point. So it's got to be HTTPS and allow internet connections. So those first two things over here, same for your MP or DP. So HTTPS and internet. So you have to modify those two, or create a brand new one to support those couple of features. Then you also have to create the enrollment point, enrollment proxy point. And I'll show you those. So you have to create 2 new site system roles, or install 2 new site system roles. And I do have those installed here, enrollment point, enrollment proxy point. There's basically no configuration for them. So they're pretty simple roles. So it's just default website, what port you want to use, and your application name, so HTTPS and computer account to set them up. Just like you would any other system. But I just went with default. I didn't change a thing here on the enrollment point and the enrollment proxy point. So I just took the defaults for both those. So those are the infrastructure requirements you have to make. Now, it requires certificates, which means you have to have a certificate authority in your environment. So I have one in my environment here. I've got a Windows server-based CA, certification authority, and I guess that didn't really help out. So I created these 2 templates here. I created the Mac client cert and the web server cert. So you need the web server cert for those systems that are internet facing for your clients, so the MP and the DP, and then the Mac client cert is, for the Mac clients that communicate over SSL, they have to have a client authentication cert. And you can see the intended purpose, client authentication versus server authentication for the two different roles. So I went ahead and created those certs, and we have very, very good documentation in the configuration manager. Just go to the Getting Started guide, supporting configurations, go to client requirements, and go to Macintosh client requirements, and it will point you directly to the pages for creating your certificates. It's like a 3-page doc that goes through all the certificates you need and ways to get them deployed appropriately. So I have that. Then the last thing for preparation that you need in your infrastructure is go to client settings, and you have to allow users to enroll their Macintosh devices. So you go to default client settings or create custom client settings that you want. Properties, you go to enrollment, and then down at the bottom you have allow users to enroll mobile devices and Mac computers. So you have to change that from a no to a yes to allow enrollment of mobile as well as Macs. And then you have to click the enrollment profile. So you have to go set profile, and I've set one, but I'll show you real quickly. Just create, give it a name. What site do you want your clients to be assigned to when they enroll in here? So you're hard coding the site code for them, in my case MCM. You then specify who's your CA, and so here's my issuing CA. And then what certificate do I want to use for enrolling with my clients? So I created that Mac client certificate, which again the documentation tells you all the specifications for creating that certificate, like subject, name, and so on. So I just went ahead and created that and set the profile to allow users to enroll yes. Okay, at that point in time, your infrastructure is all set up and running, but it is different infrastructure than you would have just for a purely Windows environment or just adding in the Linux and Unix clients. Now, there is no such thing as a legally supported Mac OS, so I don't have a VM to show you how to install the agent and enroll the agent. But basically, what you would do then is, before I move to the whiteboard, what you would do is you would download from our download center. Remember, I showed you the links to get to the Mac client as well as the Linux Unix client. You would download this guy. Oops, I can't zoom in. This is my local client. You would download this guy right here, Config Manager Mac client. So you download that from the download center. You would go ahead and run that. You can see that's a Windows installer package. You go ahead and run that, and that extracts out this guy right below it, Mac client.dmg. So you would take this Mac client DMG over to your Macintosh client. So Mac client.dmg. You go take that to your Mac client. On the Mac, we support Mac OS X 10.6 and 10.7 right now. We don't support Mac OS X 10.8. However, that's changing very, very quickly, very shortly. In fact, when you look at when I finish my demo here, you'll see that mine actually is a 10.8, my MacBook Air that I have. It is a 10.8. We're going to support that. It's purely, we had customers test it out. We just didn't have time to complete our testing on it to be able to say we support it. So our supported platform is only 10.6, 10.7, blah, blah. Basically a hot fix that will give you 10.8 support. It's just going to be supported platform change. No other code changes that we're expecting. Okay. So you take this guy to your Mac, and you extract it out of the Macintosh. That's going to go ahead and create some utilities like CCM setup, CCM uninstall, and then a CM enroller. And you got some other tools like CM, AppUtil, and a couple other things. I remember all of them. But it extracts out the installer utility that you need and the enroller utility you need. So you run CCM setup or CCM install, whatever it is. I have to look it up and see the exact name of the utility. But we have a document that walks you through the 15-step process to get Macintosh installed and enrolled. And it tells you how to prepare your device management point, your distribution point. It tells you how to install the enrollment proxy point, your enrollment point. It tells you to go ahead and download this, extract it out of your Macintosh, make sure you have these files, make sure you have a tools folder that gets extracted that has CMF util in it and a couple other things in there. Then it tells you to go ahead and run the installer. When you run the installer on your site, it will go ahead and install the client agent on the Mac. You have to reboot your client after you install the client agent, like basically CCM exec, SMS agent host service. Then once you've rebooted after that, you run the CM enroller that will enroll you into the site, and you can have the enroller actually pull the certificate from us as part of your enrollment profile. You can have it download the certificate installed on the Mac, or you can do it on your own if you wish to ahead of time. But you can enroll the Mac into your environment. When you do that, then what you'll see in your database, in devices, your Macintosh will appear as a client. You'll enroll in your client, and if you go look at its properties, you'll see the same thing we saw for the Linux Unix, which is client registration, heartbeat discovery, same as the Windows. You'll see this says it's a Mac OS X client. It's a mobile device. It's not a desktop or, in my case, a laptop. And then the SP1 client version. So you'll see it there, but it does list it as a mobile device. And roll through all the rest of the properties that you might happen to have, and it is automatically approved. Notice that it does give you a different icon. The icon is a mobile device icon as opposed to a desktop type icon. That's because it actually rolls as a mobile device. So it actually does look like a mobile, even though it's not a necessarily mobile device. We've had some people complain about that. So maybe in the future that will change, but for right now they are treated as mobile devices. So you install the agent, requires a reboot, you enroll it, that requires a reboot. Once you're done then, on the Mac client, it has one utility. In the control panel, we have the control configuration manager utility, and what you have on a Mac, and again, I can't show it to you because I don't have a Mac hooked up in a VM, but we have a control panel. It goes into system preferences on the Macintosh. You see configuration manager there. And like you see right here, go to Configuration Manager, and you would see this. You see this basic information on that utility. You'd see who enrolled it, what the username was that enrolled it, your certificates, and all that kind of basic stuff, what site you're assigned to. You see that, and then down here in the lower right-hand corner, there's a little button. The button's called Connect Now. Connect Now is basically a one button that does everything for Macintosh. So you click Connect Now, it connects you up to your device management point, retrieves any policies you have. If you have any data uploaded, go ahead and upload your data for you at that point in time as well, like hardware inventory. So I went ahead and clicked enroll, after enrolled it and rebooted, I went to Configuration Manager and System Preferences, clicked Connect Now, and it forwards my hardware inventory up. So on the Mac client, it went ahead and generated hardware inventory. You get a bit more data in hardware inventory than you get from the Linux Unix client, but it does also include your installed applications. You get the list of installed apps. You go ahead and pick whatever category of inventory data you want to look at. In this case, it's the list of installed apps, and you'll see that. So you'll have these will appear in your inventory again, just like your Linux does, just like your Windows clients do, because it's all in your database. You run appropriate inventory reports, you'll see them. You go ahead and create collections out of these devices. So I created a collection of Mac clients, and I just went to System, Resource, Operating System name and version, Mac OS X, and I created my query-based rule. I have one member in it. I have the one, Wally's MacBook Air. So he enrolls, and you have all your inventory data there, create your collections up from it. And now we have the two different things you can do outside of client inventory, and that is software distribution. So for software distribution, you can go and create an application. In this case, I've created Skype, and you can see down to statistics already, devices with applications 1, so I've already deployed it and it was successful, and this is my content status. It was successfully distributed to my on-premise DP. But how you create an application is a little bit unique with the Macintosh. So, let me go ahead and punch the screen up for a minute. Projector. Let me go ahead and mute this guy. Oh, light's going on for a second. There we go. Okay. So you have this utility called CM-AppUtil. You take your package, your application for the Macintosh, in my case it was Skype, Skype.6.1, whatever it is, in this case it was an EMG file. You take your software that you want to distribute to Macintoshes, and you're doing it on a Mac client. So on the Mac client, you take this utility, CM-AppUtil, which comes in the, I'm going to say .exe, I know it's not a .exe, but CM-AppUtil, it comes from this Mac client EMG file. You run CM-AppUtil, you give it some command line parameters, I think one was a -a, and one was I think -source, you path it to where your source files is at EMG, and you give it a -o, which is your output path. So I think I just said Skype was my output file. And basically what we do is the CM-AppUtil takes your Macintosh format file, it bundles it up into a Windows consumable format. So kind of like a zip file. But it makes a file called Skype, and I'll show it to you on my laptop. app.cmmac, if I remember correctly. So you take your software that's on the Macintosh that you want to distribute, you run it through our utility, it bundles it up into a Windows format. Then what I did is took a USB stick, stuck it in my MacBook Air, took this file, copied it to my USB stick, ejected it, took it over to my laptop, inserted it, and then copied that file over to my VM for software distribution. Okay, light's going back down. So what got created on my Mac or my laptop then, lab files, okay, see me on there. Was here was the output file. Here was the output file, Skype.app.cmmac. So this is the output file, basically a bundling up of the Macintosh format file into a Windows consumable format. So took that file, and we take that file and you create an application out of it. So create app. Now your format type is Mac OS X. That's one of the types of software you can create with SP1. So you do Mac OS X, and I went to primary one, lab files, Skype, and then I just imported the CMMac app, the Skype.app.cmmac. So just import that kind of like I did the appv file or the manifest.xml file, or you do an MSI file or an exe or a .appx, whatever it is, depending upon the new type of software you want to distribute. So I just imported that. That thing created this application. It looks kind of like a normal Windows installer-based application. So you can, there is no application catalog requirements because you're deploying to systems as required software. There's no end-user portal in the Mac environment right now. Probably the #1 request we get is end-user targeted software distribution, which you don't have today. So you don't need to worry about that. Distribution settings, that's what DP, how you want to get to DP. Deployment type. So here's your deployment type, Mac OS X. And if you edit it, you can see that the content is that one file, Skype.app.cmmac, so everything gets zipped up into one file format. Escape. Program, so here's the install command to install that application on the Mac client. And I know Mac OS X is very Linux type and Unix type stuff, so, and I don't understand that either, so. There's a detection method, just like you have detection method for Windows installer to see if the application's already there, so no sense us push it down across the wire and try and install it. And then you can create requirements if you want to. There aren't any built in. If you go ahead and add requirements, and you can go ahead and see for devices, you have operating system. And right now it says operating system, you implement this 10.6 and 10.7, which a 10.8 client would not like, since it wouldn't be the proper OS. So you wouldn't implement that right now. So we have the hotfix to add 10.8 here. So you can control that. Unless you didn't want it to install on a 10.8 box, then you go ahead and select the appropriate operating systems. Okay, content location, just where it's already stored. You see I've already got it sitting on my Windows Server distribution point. So my primary one, site server DP. All right, so just created that application out of the CM Mac utility. Went ahead and distributed the content to the DP. As you can see down at the bottom, I deployed the content. See, the content was deployed to Mac client collection as required software. So it's basically hard-coded software delivery to the system and not to the Macintoshes, or not to the users. And then 100% compliance because my one Macintosh didn't retrieve it. So I went to the Macintosh, went to Configuration Manager from System Preferences, clicked Connect Now, and it went ahead and pulled policies, and bingo, Skype started installing almost immediately. It downloaded the content to the local cache, and then went ahead and installed. It took a moment to install Skype, and the application is available for use.
Any plans for iOS device? Support for iOS device?
We haven't got that far. That'll be the next thing we talk about. But yes, we support it today with the integration with Windows Intune. So if I go right here, and we're ruining my next demo, but that's all right. There you go. So we'll talk more about that in the next set of images that I bring up that are all set up on Windows Intune integration. So you just go ahead and deploy that just as normal software to the Macintosh client. Now the other area we go beyond what we do with Linux Unix is asset to compliance and compliance settings. You can distribute compliance settings to a Macintosh to configure and do remediation of non-compliance. So here I went ahead and created one for Set Internet Homepage. Go to Properties for this configuration item. Supported platforms, again, doesn't have 10A down here, but it will have with that hotfix. My setting, I said I want to set ESPN. So I went ahead and said set ESPN. My application ID is com.apple.safari, and the key that I want to change is homepage. So this is basically a registry setting. It's basically a registry setting from a Windows device. I want to go ahead and change it. So it'd be registry value, home, Internet Explorer, and then homepage. And we're setting that. So that's the location I want to go. And what I'm saying is I want to have remediation, or I want my client to have that value equal to ESPN.com, and then remediate, oops, I just covered up the check mark, but remediate non-compliance rules when specified, or when supported. So I created this configuration item. I then added this configuration item to configuration baseline. And my configuration baseline, it just added the CI there. It's a very simple process. I created a deployment out of that. That deployment was to Mac Client Collection, and you can see I'm 100% compliant. But on that deployment, I just said to remediate non-compliance when supported. So just like in a Windows environment, the CI configuration item has to be configured for remediation, and the configuration baseline deployment has to be configured for remediation. I did that. Deployed to my Mac, retrieved policies again with the Connect Now utility, and within a minute, the Mac client launched off Safari and went to ESPN.com as my homepage. And comes back with your compliance. You can monitor that in the deployments node. So here's the application deployment. You see it's 100% compliant, and here is the baseline compliance for the configuration item. So baseline is 100% compliant as well. Now, you were asking a question earlier about creating a collection out of, I don't remember what it was now, non-approved clients. One of the cool things is, if you haven't seen it with configuration baselines, is that it's very easy to create a collection out of non-compliance if you want. So you take your baseline, you right-click, your deployment, and create a new collection, and then compliant, error, non-compliant, or unknown. So you can very easily say, hey, let me know who is not compliant. I'll pick compliant, so I only have compliant state, and then just click OK through the wizard. You don't have to change anything. And now we create a new collection for you, which is, in this case, set Mac homepage, Mac client system collection, and then compliant with my resolution state. It creates a collection for you of that. And if I go to a show members, it's got my MacBook Air there. So it's very, very simple to create a collection out of that. And it is I guess I went by too fast enough. If you go to properties, you'll see that is a query-based membership rule. So this is query-based, so it will go ahead and on your full schedule, it will go ahead and reevaluate that. Now, this is important to note that you should not, that we document it, you should not use incremental collection evaluation for DCM-based collections. There's some problem with that, and it has some big performance issues. And we do tell you there's certain things in our certain types of data you shouldn't do incremental collection evaluation on, and DCM compliance is one of those. And it is in the product docs on TechNet. So. Okay. Anything else? So again, just last thing I'll show you on the configuration items. Just go to create a new config item, and then just for type, just go ahead and click Mac OS X as your type instead of Windows or mobile device. Just click Mac OS X, and then it will go ahead and let you create your compliance item. And when you go new, you can do, you can see here, you can do scripts and preferences. So shell scripts and preferences is what you can do for the system, not for users. We're not doing user targeting stuff yet. So just create shell scripts and preferences for setting whatever items you need to have set and remediated. Or you don't have to remediate, you can just do monitoring to validate who is compliant and who's not compliant. So that's the Macintosh story. The other thing about Macintoshes is for discovery, you can discover them through AD system discovery through domain join. Because Macs you can domain join. So if they are domain joined, you'll find them with AD system discovery, just like you would a Windows client. You could also theoretically find Macintoshes or Linux Unix clients from network discovery. Because network discovery, you could theoretically find anything with an IP address on your network. But other than that, it's client agent installation. It is then hardware inventory, which includes installed software. It is then software distribution of applications, not packages and programs like Linux Unix does. So it uses the new application model as opposed to the old classic packages and programs. And you can do patches through applications as well. There's no Apple updates technology for patching. It's done through software distribution. And then settings management, deploying settings to the Macintosh. The three most common requests for Macintoshes are OSD, deploy the Mac OS, user-based software distribution, so an end-user portal for installing apps like our application catalog, and then remote control, to be able to remotely connect up to Macintosh. So for there you can use Link or some other utility like that to go ahead and do your remote control technology, but built in our product, we don't have it yet. So.
What about that?
There is endpoint protection for both Macs and Linux. And that was available before we actually had support for it in our product. That was available a year ago. So it's available to volume license customers. You go to the volume license site and you get endpoint protection, which we did update as of SP1 for Linux, not Unix, but for Linux, as well as Mac clients. But again, it's not integrated with the endpoint protection stuff I showed you here. It's actually technology we licensed from a third party, and that we're working to get it more integrated with the rest of our endpoint protection story that we have for our clients. But it's there, and actually there was something not too long after we acquired the technology that some big thing hit Macintosh environments, and we found out all those customers that had used our stuff they're in good shape. So it does a decent job, but it's all manually administered. You have to have internet access to go and download new definitions, or do a manual process of doing that. So, yeah. Okay, anything else on Macs? Because then we get to Intune, I have to switch VMs again. Snapshots. So, okay. here. And as you can see, I got a whole bunch of snapshots for here. So I have one prep just for my Mac. We've got my infrastructure there, and then I go ahead and enroll my Macintosh. Oh, step number 15, that document I was talking about, tells you how to uninstall the Mac agent. If you want to uninstall the Mac, it's like cm uninstall -c. You go ahead and uninstall the Mac, but it's step number 15 or 14 in that document. And it will go ahead and tell you how to do that. So you're all set, ready to roll to do that type of work as well. But it takes you through the whole process, including the software distribution. And where did my snapshot go? Where's my snapshot applied? Where's snapshot? Oh, here we go. Close this. That's fine. So it takes you through the software distribution scenario and the compliance settings for your environments as well. It looks like afternoon snack is there, so why don't we take another like 5-minute break, let you guys get an afternoon snack before you all fall asleep, and then we'll pick up with the Intune integration, and then we'll just do our Q&A / whatever else I can pick up and show you after that.